Welcome back. This is Turning Points. Pacific, tell me about refugee camps in Zambia. It's hard for me to put into context just how many people found themselves displaced and living in these refugee camps. You mentioned to me before it may well have been as many as 1 million people at a camp at any one time.
Before I jump to Zambian camp, I just forgotten the camp which was in Kibeho, Kibeho refugee camp, which was protected by Zambian peacekeeper soldiers and the Ghanaian, and United Nations also for High Commissioner for Refugees. They were also there. It was a camp which occupied with more than millions of Hutus and minority Tutsis. But at that time, when the enemies went over, I don't remember the year, but it's between 1995 and 1996. The camp was attacked under the regime of Paul Kagame, and where many Hutus were killed as well in that camp. And even the United Nations and the peacekeepers had to lose control. And that's where my father also invaded and killed. And then, as I can start now, the background, the real refugee life in Zambia was also crucial. Before we reached in Zambia, we had also some of critical issues to enter through the border to Zambia, because as we were crossing DRC, we went to the border of Zambia and Congo, which was Kaputa. That was 1997. And the Zambian government could not allow us to enter because they think maybe since these refugees they have been chased away, maybe there is some enemies hiding from them who are soldiers, because they knew that it could happen eventually. So they kept us away from the border so that they can search well and analyze and see who's a refugee and who's not a refugee, who was a former soldier and who's not a soldier, who's a civilian, who's an orphan. So by the help of UNHCR and Red Cross, so they made like registration, and then we were respected now as refugees. That's where I can say the name refugee, I got it from the border of crossing, Congo to Zambia. So after 8 months, that's when we were taken to Meheba refugee camp in the same year, 1997. And living there in a camp, a camp for a refugee, for a person who's a refugee, is not a house, it's just a tent with the stamp of United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees.
On the tent?
In a tent.
Yeah.
And if you were like a family of 10 to 15 families, then maybe you'll be given 2 tents if you're lucky. And then you'll be sleeping there, you'll be given a pot where to cook, and then you'll be supported by UNHCR and Red Cross in terms of providing food and medication, but which is not sufficient to thousands and thousands of refugees.
Yeah.
And because of having so many people from different backgrounds, different cultures, different corners of the world, and also disease came in, like cholera, malaria, dysentery affected all refugees because they were squeezed in a big camp, but not everyone having space. That's what I can call it. Everyone was not having more space. And then they tried to negotiate and space people there, until then the United Nations says, we'll be helping you at a certain years. Then after these years, then you have to look at yourself. So there were 3 ways. Either to go and do farming, produce your own goods, or die.
You mind me asking you what happened to your parents? What happened to your father?
Yeah, as I said, my father was invaded and killed in the refugee camp called the Kibeho camp between 1995 and 1996. And then my mom was separated for good in Rubirizi camp in DRC when the enemies attacked again the camp. The bombs exploded, and then she went this way, I went this way.
Never seen it since?
Never seen it since, yeah.
It strikes me as you're one of the lucky ones insofar as you've had a degree of internal strength that's actually allowed you to continue moving forward while injury and people being attacked and the sickness and the lack of food and everything else and the emotional trauma that so many people must have been going through for so long, living in this life with not really having another option, and yet you were always focused on trying to rise above that and trying to create more opportunities for him. Where did that come from? There was a message that your mother was always talking to you about, the way your parents raised you?
No, not really. But the the only thing I can say, for me to be strong in kind of that situation and to overcome all those kind of crucial problems, it was just through the charities and Good Samaritans and other unknown people. Like I can say Forge Group is one of them. It was American Student Volunteers was one of them who tried to give me counseling.
And who was that?
They are just American students who
okay.
volunteer to Africa to help refugees.
Yeah.
So they are the ones who gave me power, like to feel strong in terms of counseling. And also Holy Cross is one of them. It's based in Zambia. There is a certain archbishop who just raise his own money and support refugees in terms of education who doesn't have to support themselves. So that's one of them. And also MRCU, which is Meheva Credit Union, something like that. It was also under Italian NGOs in conjunction with MRCU, which was supported by other Rwandans refugees. So they helped me in terms of education as well and keep telling me that maybe one day things will be better. So I kept saying, no, maybe things will be better.
You're a good student?
Of course. even now. Yeah, because I kept focusing on it because I could imagine, like, if I was back in my country, maybe I could have done something. And seeing other people succeeding, the people who are the same age of me, I was felt like not in a good mood because it gives much bad impact to say, no, why can't I do what my friend is doing since we are in the same age? But the other sound comes and say, no, you didn't have the same opportunity. The time maybe you were finding peace to sleep in peace, he was in peace. So all those kind of reflection just keep motivated me to be a good student. Yeah.
It's quite a remarkable journey that you've had.
Yeah.
There was a time when you started to think that maybe there was a life not in Africa. Tell me about that process of putting together this idea in your own mind that you might be able to leave Africa and find a better life.
That was just from the friends who were telling me that Pacific, one day you'll be a better person. But according to me, I was hopeless. To be frankly talking, I was hopeless. I couldn't think that I'll be here. Because when they established the kind of resettlement through UNHCR, that was like the crossing session of being a refugee. So when they established, there was only the three options: either to go back home where you came from, or either to remain in Zambia, but apply for being what do they call, like, you apply in the government of Zambia. If they respect you to live in Zambia, then you have to wait. If they not, you have to go back. Then also the other option, the third option, was to move from the third country, I mean the second country, to the third country, which is here. So I chosen the option of trying to apply as much as I can and explain my story as much as I can. But still more, my letters were being rejected. Like, there was people who were qualified to go to America, Canada. I wasn't one of them, but I couldn't cross my hands. I just kept trying, and definitely Australian government came and said, no, Pacific, we will pick you. Then we have to start on your case. We're not promising that we're going to pick you, but we have to start your case. And I remember when the letter came from UNHCR, they just found me home because by that time they couldn't bring the letters and in front of everyone to say, no, this person is going to Australia, this person is going to Canada, because
you can't do that in front of everybody else, can you? Yeah.
It was not secure.
Would cause chaos.
Yeah. So they brought the letter to me and said, no, Pacific, you are meeting the immigration of Australia. You have passed the interview for UNHCR.
Yep.
Now the interview which is remained is the Australian immigration to find out more about you. And definitely when you get that letter, there is so many chances to pass.
Yep.
When you get to that level. So that level, I said, things are working.
Mm-hmm.
Then I kept myself like feeling that I'm not belonging to Africa anymore. I'm going soon.
Yep.
Then the third letter was now the acceptance letter to say, no, Pacific, you have accepted by Australian government anytime you're going.
Yep.
That was the first, like, since ever I was born, that was my first Christmas I enjoyed.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like Christmas, and I celebrated like with my friends, but they couldn't know why I'm happy.
You're still not telling people?
No. Even in my closer friends, I didn't tell them. I just told them that I'm going when I was at the airport in Lusaka, in Zambia. That's when I told them that, guys, I'm leaving.
Wow.
And they were not happy for that.
Yeah.
They say, oh, how? We're trying to find, how did you do that? I said, man, I can't really explain.
Coming up to that point, I guess it was brought home just how dangerous it was living in the refugee camps when you found yourself literally camping next to somebody who you had great reasons to be afraid of.
It's a crucial thing to explain about, but what I felt myself, I could feel like being so young and being an orphan without anybody to cry for, everything I have to do it on my own.
Mm.
It was a crucial moment, and moreover, the kind of fearness of what I have seen, it was still odd in my mind that maybe the same enemies, the same they chased me from this point, this point, this point. I could count all the points and all the camps. I could say definitely there is so many chances that these enemies, they will still come for me or for my neighbors. And then, moreover, since the Meheba refugee camp was for all the people who claims themselves to be refugees and those people who are natural refugees, so I could see that there is no peace, because even fighting, threatening were still going on in the same camp, because the people that you don't know, they may be either from maybe somebody, like it was action of like selling people. Maybe a person from that point tried to sell you, tried to say, no, this kind of person is from this family in Rwanda. The father was like this and this. You're gone. You go to fetch for firewood in the forest. Sometimes you're not coming back. You'll not come back. I've got so many evidences, like the girls who were going to fetch for firewood or bring to fetch water, and they're being left there, and when they're asked like who raped you, and when the police goes for investigation, they can't find it. So those were kind of evidence showing that where I am is not safe as well.
Yeah. After the break, Pacific's journey to a new life here in Brisbane.